because it's all about it.
Step together, but in the early 80s, Bill Bright had a campaign called History's Handful. We wanted to have 1,000 men give $1 million each and raise $1 billion to fulfill the Great Commission. So in the early 80s, we'd go around the country meeting with these prospective donors and helping them figure out how they could free up resources to fulfill the Great Commission. And I'll never forget, I had a client. He was a real estate guy from Michigan that had moved down to Paradise Valley, Arizona. And I'll never forget, he had a $173,000 note receivable on his balance sheet. And this is back when tax brackets were like 70%. And I said, well, you know, you can give that note receivable, because he was getting the interest, he was paying capital gain tax. And so we helped him realize, you know, he didn't think he could give it. That's one of the big challenges people have, is they don't realize they can give things other than cash. And so I think, Ryan, that's kind of the first fundamental issue that you have to understand is I can give other things. So this guy gave the note receivable, wrote off $173,000, avoided the capital gain tax, got a 70% write-off, and so it only impacted him about $30,000. So it was a beautiful thing.
Wow. And the way I like to think about it is there's intentional giving and then there's intelligent giving. And so Ronald Blue Trust helps people give intelligently, both for capital appreciation now, but also you and Ken talked about this concept of appreciation for eternity. Do you want to touch on that?
Well, I just think that it never ceases to amaze me that people can have successful businesses but they don't understand. Like I had a guy come in, he owns $400,000 of Apple stock, but he's just been given cash. You talk about efficient, intelligent giving. It's like, hey, let's give some of that Apple stock, get the same write-off, you make the same gift, but you get rid of all that capital gain tax. And so I just think there are, what I've observed is that since most advisory firms aren't really thinking about the giving aspect, you know, Ken and I talked about that, you've got to think about, you know, the whole holistic picture. They're really not thinking about what can you give in a strategic, intentional way. And so that's one as we come alongside. We always have an eye, since our mission is to free up resources to fulfill the Great Commission. We're always looking to how can we help the client accomplish his objective, but still be able to maximize their generosity.
All to help advance the Great Commission.
That's exactly right.
So the stories I'm sure you have, we could spend the rest of the night talking about. But tell me about, so how many conferences is this for you here at FCCI?
Oh gosh, it's been like 5 in a row, the last few years. And then, like I said, back in the 80s and 90s, we were very involved with the conferences. So like I said, we go way back because, you know, FCCI mentoring to business owners. And, you know, I'm like I said this afternoon, business owners have a unique challenge in this whole area of freeing up resources for the Great Commission, because they're usually cash strapped, they have no cash, and the business is insatiable. So it's how do I balance giving is how I've been prospered, my business is growing, and how do I deal with that? But I'm gonna give you a story. This is how you kind of tie it together, because you've got to deal with your estate, you've got to deal with your succession plans for the business, you've got to deal with philanthropy, and you've got to deal with your individual plan. You have to put food on the table, you have to have cash flow too, right? The business owner, your kids, and all that. So you have like 4 tracks you have to always be working on simultaneously. I had a client I worked with for many, many years, had a very successful business, and one of his children was coming into the business, the other 3 weren't. But we did several things with one plan, and that was to give according to his ability. We gave 10% of his company to the National Christian Foundation. So he got to write off 10%. The gift was like $1.5 million because his business was worth $15 million. Then the son coming into the business was able to buy the stock from NCF. So now we're getting more stock to the son that's going to actually run the business. So we're dealing with succession. At the same time, we're dealing with philanthropy and accomplishing an estate plan. And so I just think that's the thing that business owners need to be thinking about, is it's all integrated. I don't just do my estate in a vacuum, my succession in a vacuum, my philanthropy in a vacuum, and my individual plan in a vacuum. So, you know, that's a perfect story where it all came together, but we have many of those kinds of stories using various charitable techniques.
I know we have a lot of business owners in the room that are at various stages in the business life cycle, but we have a lot of business owners in the room who are thinking about succession and transition to family. And I love what you just said there, because there's some very intelligent ways to go about that. So if we have business owners in the room, no matter what stage business life cycle they are, and some of this turns on some light bulbs. how do they engage with Ron Blue Trust?
Well, you just reach out to us at ronblue.com, and we've got offices around the country, so we'd be happy to just sit down and visit with you and see if we could help you. That's what we've done for 40 years. It's on the same side of the table as you, but we have a mission to help you free up resources the way God blessed you. So reach out to us. We'd be happy to visit with you, check us out online. But we're grateful to be able to be a sponsor for FCCI. Thanks for having us here. And Ken and I share this afternoon and have this time this evening.
I was describing to somebody at our dinner table, you and Ken are a little bit of an odd couple. It works, but it works.
You don't think?
No, in all seriousness, Russ, thank you for Ron Blue's partnership and sponsoring the conference. So much of this happens because of sponsors like you, so thank you so much.
Let me say one other thing. All those books out there, that were left over from, some of you weren't here this afternoon for Ken and I. See the leverage books, well, I don't know where the leverage book got put, but Leverage and Recalibrate, all those books are our gift to you, complimentary. So take those, take the rest of the leadership books, anything out there. I see that whole table empty tomorrow. So just grab books, give them to your kids and grandkids, take them home with you.
They're Christmas presents.
Yeah, Christmas presents. Yeah. That's a good stewardship.
That's good stewardship. Yeah. That's passing it along to the next generation, right? All right, everybody, can we
Thanks.
give Ronald Blue Trust and Russ a hand? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
All right, never mind. We have a special treat coming up next, and we got a video to show you, so please enjoy.
This story is not my story. It's yours. And this moment, it doesn't belong to me. It belongs to you. Take it.
Destiny belongs to the underdogs. You want to prove that?
I'm Jon. I'm an entrepreneur and a filmmaker. We make film for the heartland, films that uplift and inspire, but ultimately what we want to bring the audience is a rush of hope. Someone asked me, is this audience wide or is this audience a niche? And I said, well, how do you define a niche? And they said by common affinity. So if you measure a niche by common affinity, the faith audience is the largest niche in the world. When the Bible sold 5 billion copies, when there's 2.25 billion people that claim affinity to Christianity in a way that defines them. And when the audience is constantly saying we are completely underserved and misrepresented and underrepresented in entertainment, you just begin to ask the question, why is there not an HBO for the faith audience, both in America and around the globe? It's this enormous opportunity. I've heard it said complex problems don't have simple answers, and so there's not a simple answer, but I can try to make it as simple as possible. I think it comes down to 4 words.
You said a mark right there. That's good. It just needs to be ahead of her. And action.
The first of which I think is quality. There is a stigma on faith-based entertainment that's cheap and cheesy and trite and authentic. And the quest of the films that Andy and I make, we want to be a part shattering that glass ceiling and disproving that stereotype, to reinvent what people thought of when they thought of faith film. And what we discovered is that if you can make something big enough and bold enough, but also safe enough for the entire family, the audience will show up.
I can only imagine the 4th biggest domestic opening.
I can only imagine, because rightfully upstaging some of its highest
A new movie called Jesus Revolution takes a look back.
It's got $40 million in revenue.
I love this movie.
It's a testament to the fact that people want to see positive stories that hold up the fact that there is a God that does this and does care.
We knew when we had a vision this big, we needed a really big partner.
We want to provide a platform for messages and stories that nourish our soul.
The second thing to consider is empathy. I think the faith audience understands whether what they're watching is authentic. The problem is there's just not a lot of people that have really spent a lot of time honing their craft and have resources to create really good stuff. that also just have an intuitive, empathetic understanding of the audience. So you get things that are well made that aren't authentic to the audience, and you get things that are authentic to the audience that are well made. And there's this gap in between, and that is the problem. Which is why the third thing is so important, which is collaboration. What can we do together that none of us can do alone? And it was in going around the country and asking that question first that got me really excited.
And I knew the first person I had to go talk to was Dallas Jenkins, whose show, The Chosen, which began as a short film shot on a farm in Chicago, had fast become a global phenomenon and a new way to experience the Bible.
All right, here we play. We're going to go right into it.
Get your attention.
Action! I'm Dallas Jenkins, and I am actually sitting on a farm in Illinois. And the reason is because this is exactly where The Chosen was launched. This cornfield is where we started, and you actually have the shot of the shepherd walking by himself. We planted a little sign, wrote Bethlehem on it. So he's walking towards us, and then we go to the sign. And seeing this story from a different angle, I felt like I'd love to do this forever. I knew it. So I remember Jon first approached me. He shared with me this concept of a larger platform, and you can rely on it not only for a respectful portrayal of your faith, but a good one. And there's something for my teenager, for my young kid, there's something for just us. We know we're going to find something because we can trust it because it has this banner over it. The more I talked about, the more I got excited about not just wanting to create some content for this platform, to actually be part of the founding of the platform.
We've all been functioning as what we call competitive allies. And for the first time, we're coming together collaboratively, asking this question, what can we do together that none of us can do alone?
And action.
So for the team of creatives, how powerful an engine could we build? I love that this conversation started with Lionsgate and early investors like UTA and Lion-Tree and Jason Blum and Tyler Perry, Brad Swartz, who produced Schitt's Creek that won 10 Emmys.
And then to bring on McKinsey to do the business plan and data and research. And then added to all that to recruit and build an incredible executive team led by Kelly Merriman, who launched Netflix in its first 19 countries, and Heather Moosnick, who launched YouTube TV and led Hulu's content team.
It's just this incredible executive team, this really, really powerful engine to the car with this group of creatives that has worked so hard to refine their craft, establish their brand, reach their audience, but has never worked together before. That's the nitroglycerin that I think could make this really work. And then, so the fourth and last thing is this idea of trust. What is missing is a platform that can achieve total trust with the faith audience, both in quality and in content. And that's the opportunity, where we can say you can put this platform on every device in the house. Everything on the platform has been curated just for you, where the stories that this audience dreams of being told are being told with scale and with excellence, and everything on the platform can galvanize family together.
Right now, there has never been a greater opportunity. We can actually build it ourselves. And we all started to get together, started to build and grow. And that's when it came time to go, all right, you know what, no more talking about it, no more dreaming it up, let's make it happen.
You didn't write this song in 10 minutes. It took a lifetime.
There is an entire generation searching for God.
When you do what everyone said is impossible, when you strike down this giant, they will!
So the invitation on all fronts to everybody involved is that same and simple question. What can we do together that none of us can do alone?
Okay, we are queuing up a Zoom call, and so I think that we're going to be joined momentarily here
But thank you for those applause. I had the same reaction when I learned about Kingdom and met Jon and Heather and others, and had the great privilege of spending a few days with them just last week to hear things like the sizzle reel you just saw for 2 days. And so it's incredibly exciting where they're coming to put a dent in culture and really affect the culture of the country and of the world. And so while we're queuing up, we're privileged to we're going to have Jon Erwin is going to join us by Zoom here momentarily. I think we'll be up on the screen, and we have Heather Moosnick, that is the President and Chief Operating Officer of Kingdom. So, all right, we're getting, there we are.
Jon?
Jon.
I hear him.
How are you
Jon.
I wish I could be there in person. I had every plan to be there in person, but I got under the weather over the weekend that we were together, and when that happens for me, I tend to medicate with like NyQuil and Snickers bars, and probably not the best combination. And so I finally just had to stay put. I wish I could be there with you in person, and thanks so much. If this is a conference specifically for CEOs, I think sometimes that can be the loneliest. It's like a film director, job. In the world sometimes. I like this Horst Schulze quote, to lead means you forfeit the right to make excuses, and so it's great to be with you, and the work that you do is very important, and leading people is difficult, but worth it, and so thanks so much for having me.
So Jon, thank you for being here, and I'm not sure if you can see us, but Chad Merrill here that's sitting on stage with Heather, and so first of all, thank you. I know you were coughing and feeling pretty rough on Saturday, and so thank you for taking the time to be with us tonight.
It looks like the NyQuil is working, so that's good news.
Yeah, it's paid off. I have this life motto, which is change starts tomorrow, and I think I need to change that to
I've been working on that,
starts
but
today.
I'm not
I think I
succeeding
need to work on just basic things like working out and eating healthy. But anyway, I had a good time. We had a wonderful weekend, and I am feeling better. And if there's any headline for you all to know, is just Christianity really is making its comeback in Hollywood, in an industry in a profound way, and I just feel like God's really on the move, and our audience is hungry, and it's an incredible moment that we're all in together, and I think you'll feel it more substantively over the next few years, but there's just an undercurrent in all over the industry that's just like a return to values and a return to Christianity, and I'm excited to be part of it.
Well, thank you. So we'll just kind of dive right in, and since we had our pre-talk planning via text about an hour ago or two, we'll just turn this into a conversation that goes anywhere it needs to go. We wanted to start off by first, I think everyone saw from the video the roles. You're a founder, you in Dallas, and you're a creative, and then you've teamed up with Heather and Kelly, who are the executives, or in entrepreneur speak, we've got the visionaries and the integrators and the creatives and the executives, or maybe Beauty and the Beast is applicable for the film.
That's exactly right.
And so why don't you just kick us off with what's the vision here? What's the big idea?
Well, I do think, to your point, I read a book many years ago called Traction, and then I think there was a sequel called Rocket Fuel that really set me free. That just the relationship between a visionary and implementation, and that nitroglycerin combination. And I do think that if you have the right idea, which I think we do, that the best thing is just to get the best team possible around you. And we have an incredible team, and Kelly and Heather, 20 years as executives, and Dallas and I are super excited, and just other creatives that haven't worked together. The big idea is that, we want to take the top creatives in faith, and we want to join forces for the first time. We've been what we call competitive allies, so we've been trying to one-up each other out, out in the market. And we talk all the time. We try to support each other, but we've never done anything together. And, we just thought, instead of building everyone else's house, like all these other studios, these houses are not ours and they're sort of built on sand. Why can't we build our own home? And why can't we have a studio of our own? And if Warner Brothers and Disney are both celebrating 100 years in business, why is that not possible? And can you imagine if you could create an institution like that and infuse it with values and make it unafraid of Christianity and the American dream? And really see, that's the wonderful thing about companies. If they're built correctly, they can outlive us all in such a self-sustaining way. And so the idea is, what if we could build our own content studio, independent from Hollywood, and also build the destination platform for our audience that makes that brings curation and safety back into the home. I don't know about you, but our oldest is 14 and our youngest is 6. I often feel like that line from Jerry Maguire in my own home, where he says, "You see the jacket, I don't need it because I'm cloaked in failure." And I just feel like there's so many platforms bombarding our homes with content that you just feel out of control, and you feel like screens are ripping your family apart, and there's really no safe, curated destination anymore. And so sometimes I think the purest form of entrepreneurism can be, if a product doesn't exist and you're desperate for it, sometimes the right question is to say, why not us and why not now? And I think we're all pooling 20 years of experience and just bleeding in the arena, together to really create a media brand that can last and can stand for something, and content that's just infused with values. We don't believe that faith is a genre. We believe it's an audience to serve and a set of values that can be championed in many different types of content. And so that's the idea, is to create a studio of our own and then to create a destination platform that all of our families can trust.
Thank you. So a couple of weeks ago, I remember on a Zoom call you were sharing, and you were on that call, Heather, and you all were talking about timing and how you'd really studied great movements and great things. I know history's a passion of yours. Well, why is now the time? I mean, we're consumers. We all watch some TV and watch Netflix and carry screens and have canceled cable, but what makes now the time? I mean, why does it work now?
Yeah, I mean, so I've spent the last 2 decades building streaming services from the ground up. I've worked on the content side of it, and I've also worked on the platform side. I worked for many years at YouTube alongside Kelly, building YouTube TV, YouTube Music, and then I ran the content team at Hulu in 2018 and 19 as these new services that the media companies are launching for their own content were being hatched. And I was part of sort of the team on the front lines figuring out how to bring content back home for Disney and sort it out for Warner. And what you saw happen over the last 3 years of those services launching is that really, as Jon describes, the walls have been torn down in our homes as parents, because now all of the entertainment content that we are being served is really being filtered to us through algorithms that are increasingly trying to engage us. When the algorithms are trying to engage us with the most, with the content that we're most likely to click on and stick with, what human nature ends up gravitating towards is content that is shocking or enraging. And this is what we've seen in social media as well. But it's happening now in entertainment. And the more that is what we're watching, the more that is what's being greenlit, that is more of what we're actually being continued to be served. And there are all of the rules of the road that used to apply to linear TV 10, 15 years ago, where content had to meet certain standards. There were corporate goals that were about tune-in, but also with regulated limits on what was appropriate for the whole family. So TV 14 was the limit. You didn't see rated R content or now TV MA. And so what was the content that was being produced for the mass audiences was all content that was more infused with values and absolutely trustworthy for the home. Now that streaming is dominating our living rooms, all of those rules have gone out the window. And so what you've seen just over the last few years, as a parent, I have a 13-year-old and I have a 19 and 22-year-old stepson. Totally different experiences growing up. My 13-year-old, I have to make really hard decisions that I never thought I would have had to make as a parent. Should I let him watch Squid Game? Everybody's watching it. Is it okay? And then you start seeing kind of content that Max and Netflix and even Disney Plus are putting out, for example, with Deadpool. And you're starting to see that the content that used to be gritty and engaging and was originally created for HBO and Showtime for adults, like Breaking Bad, those types of shows, now all those shows are being produced and targeted to teens. In fact, a study a few years ago showed that Netflix already had the majority of its content that it labeled as teen appropriate was TVMA. And that's not okay. And on top of that, it's not just that it's explicit, it's not really infused with any values that we want to raise our kids with. And so Kelly and I, after 2 decades of building services like this, Kelly actually launched Netflix in the first 50 countries. I personally watched her do it because we were colleagues. We did the first deal together in 2007 when I was at a major network and she was at Netflix, and we've partnered together for the last 15 years on this. You know, she and I both really felt like everything that we had been building was creating a little bit of a monster in our home, and we had the power to change it. So when we met Jon and heard about his vision, we felt compelled to jump in because we know how to build this, and we need this in our homes, and we need a place to hold up a new standard and to create a quality of content that's engaging for all of our homes, that we can trust, and that are delivering the values that we all actually believe in.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. So Jon, tell us a little bit about, what can we expect to see come out of Kingdom, and what types of films, what are the types of films that we can expect you to produce?
I'm trying to think of what I'm allowed to say because I'd like to just tell. I mean, look, I'm so excited about the content creators that we're working, that are working together, and then the content slate. But there's a few categories of content that we're really excited about. I mean, obviously the Bible, we think, is as big a collection of stories as Marvel, and why can't we think about it that big? And so one of the sort of the tentpole shows that we're doing is House of David, which is the story of David, and we'll move to a movie called David and Goliath. None of this is announced, please, by the way. So, and then I'm also, I think, Dallas Jenkins just has such a vision for the Bible, and I think that I can't think of anything more important to work on. But that can sit right alongside all types of other content. And what the audience really wants is almost a retro Disney that's infused with and unafraid of Christianity and the American dream, And the other thing that I'm obsessed with is early American history, the Revolutionary War. I think I couldn't get in Hamilton years ago in New York, and then raged against it by reading like 30 books or something. I don't know, but I fell in love with the time period and with that story. And so I'm moving into doing a movie on the young life of George Washington that will then go into a series that will then go into another movie on the year 1776. And I'm very, very passionate about it. The stories are just epic. And I think many of the problems that we're having as a country are because we don't know our own origin story. But then we've got, other stories, a great show that's very much like This Is Us, called It's Not Like That. That's just about a pastor that loses his wife and has teenage kids, and has to, while being a pastor, parent his kids and learn to love again. And it's like parenthood, or it'll make you laugh, it'll make you cry. And pastors are just not seen as people a lot of times. They're seen negatively. I love that show. And so there's movies, there's series. It's just a monster slate of content. And and they're not small ideas at all. And I can't wait. There's a movie. I mean, while I'm telling you everything, I might as well. By the way, please, this is announced. There's a show called Burma Rangers, a movie show that's very much like the next Sound of Freedom. There's all kinds of content, and again, one of our core beliefs is that faith. We've thought incorrectly, and faith is not a genre. So this is not a type of movie, and so it's not like faith movies have to all look and feel the same. This is an audience to serve, and we're underseen, we're underserved, and this is also a set of values to champion. And you can champion them in biblical epics, or historical epics, or modern day dramas, or sci-fi, or fantasy. There's all kinds of stories that can be infused with this type of content and this type of values. But I know what I want is a destination, that I just know. I want that effect when I interface with the brand. It's like welcome home. I know everything here is excellent, well done, made by creators that I already love, and great for my entire family. And I love that. I think there's a Ronald Reagan quote when somebody asked him, "What do people see when they look at you?" And he said, "Would you believe a better version of themselves?" And I think that, great motivators are like that. And I think great content like that. I think I want content that leaves me a better version of myself. And we talk about content that restores faith in things worth believing in. And I think as rough as the world is today, there are still things worth believing in. And we want content that draws us to believe in those things again.
Great, thank you. Heather, maybe this is for you as opposed to Jon. So you've got, 300 people in a room, and lots of folks have families and grandkids and companies. And how and when are we going to be able to engage with Kingdom and with platform? And what are we thinking on timing? And hey, I'm ready to sign up. How do we do that?
You can be our first subscriber. So we are launching in 2024, so soon. We're getting ready to close our Series A funding any moment, thanks to Sovereign Capital, who's our lead investor, and we'll be closing that in the coming weeks. And you can look out for an announcement about the company and about that. But until then, the company is not publicly announced, so thank you for your discretion. And then as soon as the writers' strikes are over, we're in production on all of these incredible shows that Jon just told you about. They are written, they're ready to roll, and we are in casting now. So sometime in 2024, as soon as we have that timing, we'll be able to release our first slate of many incredible shows that are in development to the world. So we're so excited about that. And we, of course, will be partnering because in so many ways, because we cannot do this alone. This is building a community as much as it's building a brand, a studio, a platform. The community is the heart of all of it. It's the reason we will be successful in bringing this content to the world and supporting all of these voices and in having their stories told at this level. And so there are many ways that you can get involved. We have set up an email address just to start to get to know you better. It's partnerships at our code name, which is thecapraproject.com. We will be launching corporate partnerships, church partnerships, university partnerships in order to very easily and affordably bring subscription service to all of the members of your community. And we're so grateful for all of your support. If there are other ideas, things that you have that are coming to you now or come to you after you've slept on this or have asked us for more information, we'd love to talk to you and to brainstorm with you. This is the mystery of how this is unfolding is part of the joy of building this, and we know this is going to be a brand that is not just a big brand here in the US, but it's a global brand for many generations to come, thanks to you.
So Jon, we're going to come back to you, and the question that's going to leave 5 or 6 minutes to come to the end, but when you think about story, and so many of us here just loved the Erwin Brothers productions and the Kingdom Story productions over the last several years, how do you think about story? I mean, how do you find those that kind of grip what we are. And then the question is going to be right after that, just set up what we're going to see tonight. Tell us a little bit about Ordinary Angels and maybe something interesting or how that came about or what that is.
Sure, have to. And I wish I could be there with you. Stories, I think, are pretty important and integral part of society. I think they say whoever tells the best story wins, and I think this applies to entertainment and politics and the legal profession and even the job of leading anything. I think learning the power of great story is important, and I think the reason we need stories and what they do are they help us understand the meaning and purpose of life, and I think that's why Jesus told stories, and they help us understand why we're here and what life is really all about. And so I do believe, I have an optimistic belief that the right story can change your life. And if you let it, I know the right stories have changed my life. And it's an amazing thing that a story will reach right into your soul and really make you think differently. People are infinitely more willing to change what they believe and think based off how story has made them feel. And so it's a tool that has to be wielded really carefully. And when you think about mass entertainment, which is sort of the way I tell stories, it's an incredibly powerful tool because it's this symphony of art forms. And so it's visceral, it's vicarious, we call it. You literally enter the story and you experience it as if it were real, and it hacks your senses in that way. People forget that the first, it was actually another brother team, the Lumiere brothers, first people to project cinema onto a wall, onto a screen were the Lumiere brothers in France, and it actually enraged Thomas Edison at the time. He thought they were going to destroy the business. They were showing it to too many people at once. They projected a train coming into the audience, and the audience fled the room. And so we forget how this medium hacks our senses. And it's a wonderful moment. We call it the suspension of disbelief, but it's really when the audience gives themselves to the movie. And, you're no longer watching Indiana Jones, you are Indiana Jones. So it's this very, very powerful tool. And I think one that we need to learn to use and use responsibly. And I think is a tool that can restore faith in things worth believing in. And it's really cool to, this past, film that we just released this year, Jesus Revolution, it featured baptisms at Pirates Cove. We filmed it at the actual location where it happened in the 1970s. And the movie, of course, did incredibly well. And twice over the last 90 days, the national record for baptisms has been broken at that very beach because people saw the movie and they want to be baptized for themselves. And the last one, over 20,000 people showed up in a single day, 5,000 of which were baptized. And so it's amazing to see the effect that entertainment has on people. They want to participate. They want to change the way they think and believe to the way a story has made them feel. And so what we found is if you can pick the right story and tell it well, it really can change lives. There was a story that I love because we were just, Dennis Quaid and his wife were at our event over the weekend, and it was great to reconnect and hang out again. And I remember when I Can Only Imagine came out, I remember a story of a woman and her son that were seeing the movie in theaters. I saw it on Instagram, and they left the movie, and there was another woman, a total stranger, crying in the theater. And that one said to them, are you guys Christians? And they said, yeah, are you? Good to meet you, stranger. And she said, no, but I came into this movie as a popular movie, and whatever happened to Dennis Quaid's movie, the healing and the transformation and the forgiveness, I just need it to happen to me, and I just need someone to explain it to me. Can you explain it to me? And that's what they did right there. And that's happened over 400,000 times on our movies. Not to mention the global phenomenon that Dallas has cracked, chosen. And so imagine if we could do this in a sustainable, scalable, profitable way that's built to endure longer than we are. I think we could just reach billions of people with a profitable company, and that's what we've set out to do. So I love every story that we make, and we love true stories. There's nothing like true story, and I know if a true story is meaningful and moves me, I just trust that it will be meaningful and will move others as well. And the story that you're about to see, Ordinary Angels, is a true story. My co-writer, John Gunn, we wrote Jesus Revolution, American Underdog, I Still Believe together. He also directed the incredible movie, The Case for Christ, and we co-wrote this movie and he directed this movie. So I was directing down in Mobile, Alabama, and then in California, sunny weather on beaches, Jesus Revolution, while he was up in Winnipeg, Canada, with Hilary Swank and Adam, recreating the biggest blizzard in Louisville, Kentucky's history, and freezing while he was doing it. But it's a story of an entire community rallying to save the life of one little girl, and it's faith in action, and it's the story that we can all make a difference, and that faith is a verb. It's meant to be in action. Hilary Swank plays basically like an Aaron Brockovich character. She's incredible, of course, two-time Academy Award winner. Alan Richardson, who's Reacher on Amazon, is a strong Christian and wanted to do something that represented his faith and values. And I love this story. It's just a very, very well done movie. It's actually tested higher than. For a minute, Jesus Revolution was the highest tested movie that we'd ever done in the testing process. A week later, this movie tested higher. It tested at 97, and I was like, "Gosh, John, could you give me another week?" But it's a great movie. It comes out February 24th of next year in theaters nationwide via Lionsgate. But I wanted you to see it early. You're one of the first audiences to see it. But I love the movie. My hope is that. I like it when Jesus says, this is how everyone will know you're a Christian, by how you love each other, and I think that in America, there should be a return to service and a return to love and a return to serving our communities, and as the core signature of Christianity. I think that would change our nation and the world. And so that's the reason we made this movie. That's why I love the title, because we can all find some way to be an ordinary angel. So I wish I could be sitting there with you, but enjoy the film, and thank you for letting us give you an early look at what's coming. And again, your movie ticket is your vote, and when we unify our voice together, amazing things happen. We call it the fear of missing out, FOMO. And it's amazing that when our community champions something together, it triggers just the zeitgeist, mass cultural curiosity. And it's amazing to see what that does. And so go check out the movie when it comes out February 24th.
Well, Jon. Well, Jon and Kelly, thank you, or Heather, thank you very much.
It makes us up
you
all the time.
Thank you so much for the work that you're doing and the courage to take on this challenge, and for being here with us tonight. And I want to close with just a couple of data points that Pastor Greg Laurie moderated this past weekend with Jon and with Dallas Jenkins, and just a couple of thoughts to leave you with. Greg, who was one of the subjects of Jesus Revolution, shared that he was coming into his 50th anniversary of being a pastor, also his 50th anniversary being married. And about 33 years he had documented really well since he started the Harvest Crusades and things like that. And so he said, according to his data, he had spoken live to over 6 million people. And he had around 600,000, I think he said, decisions for Christ during that time. And folks, he said, since teaming up with Jon and with Jesus Revolution coming out, he has nearly seen as many people and has touched as many people. And as Jon just said, 20,000 people come in Pirates Cove, which is almost a factor of 10 of what actually happened the first go-round. And then on the heels of that, you think of The Chosen, and Dallas was sharing, Chosen's had 600 million views in the last couple. And so when you start thinking about making an impact on culture and where can we have impact on the family and where can you take it around the world? And the last thing is to really kind of excite that, with Heather and Kelly's experience globally, and just The Chosen, which has just started this. It's been translated through many of you all invested in Museum of the Bible and the Illuminations and Seed Company and the Translation Project, and saw that up in Washington. They've teamed up and now translated that story into 50 languages. And so it's now going around the world. And I think they shared just in the last month or two, they had openings in France and New Zealand and Madagascar and different places around the world. So this is truly, taking a phrase I heard John say, a once in a generation, maybe once in a millennium opportunity to really affect the culture that many of us have thought in the last several years. We're just heading down a path that may seem irreversible. So thank you all for your work. Thank you for what you do, and then we'll be enjoying the same. Thank you, John, for joining us.
Thanks for
Thank
having
you
us.
so much. You guys enjoy the movie.
Enjoy the movie.
Take care, bud.
Wow, that's pretty amazing. I'm so grateful how many times the Lord just opens up doors, right? And all we have to do is to walk through those doors. And this is a door that I'm really